But then, remember, you started this by saying, what was I talking about the other week? Well, you know how the United States military released video footage? Well, it didn't sort of release it. It said it was authentic. It was from it. Whereas the New York Times, I think, had got hold of it beforehand, which showed US fighter pilots tracking craft which were nothing like the technology we have. And in addition, you've got two US fighter pilots, a woman called Dietrich and a man called Flavon, I think is Commander Flavon. These were pilots from the USS Nimitz, which was on a training exercise off the coast of San Diego in 2004. They're going through their normal routines, and then radar picks up unknown objects, which should not even be there because it's excluded airspace. And so they're scrambled and they go after this object. And Commander Flavon and the other pilot, Dietrich, they identify what is an object like the size of their aircraft in the shape of what we call a tic-tac. And it's emerging from the ocean, and he's circling it, and he goes in to decide to go towards it, and then it starts moving towards him. So this is clearly a sign of intelligence operation here. But then it doesn't collide with him by any means, but it then disappears, zooms off, disappears, and it's picked up on radar thousands of miles away at the point at which they were meant to start from. So somehow this object had been aware of the information which should have been classified about where these planes were coming from. These pilots, like all pilots who experience this sort of thing, have historically been very unwilling to talk about it because they get referred to psychiatrists and their careers are dead in their tracks. They don't really talk about it. But now, the United States Congress has required a greater openness. Just as the French did. The French military did this too. Back in 1999, they released a report about this. The Belgian military more open about it. It was a major incident in Belgium in the 1990s, 1998, I think. And many, many other instances. So the question then is, there's a Catholic author called Paul Thigpen, who's recently brought out a book late last year about what would we do if there's alien life. And this has been thought about by I think Cantalamessa, his name is, the chief astronomer at the Vatican. What do we do if there's alien life? Well, I've said before, and I still hold to this, I don't believe there's any life out in the universe. Not a single bit of life. But what am I saying then about all these amazing incidents, which I disbelieved at one point, disbelieved totally. Partly, and I was strengthening that disbelief by a book I read which sought to debunk various claimed phenomena. But this was before the United States released these, or confirmed these airplane recordings were authentic, and before the pilots spoke publicly. What are they then if they're not from outer space? Well, some say, of course, they are from outer space, because after all, flying saucers, grey aliens, that's another thing I want to get onto. That's another interesting thing. Grey aliens, right? And other kinds of aliens. And
you believe in aliens?
Hold on. I'm just saying what I'm saying people say. Some say they can these creatures are coming here to enlighten us and to help us. We had a big incident in 1980 in Rendlesham Forest in East Anglia, I think it is, where a British Air Force base, where staffed by the United States Air Force as well, and we've had nuclear weapons shut down by these things in Montana. Seriously protected, highly secure weapons shut down. And more ominously, the launch started. I don't mean the launch itself, but the countdown to the launch started without the two men who were supposed to be turning the keys with a secret code, telling them to do that, haven't done anything, but then stopping the countdown at the same time as these strange craft. So what's going on? Are they here to enlighten us, to stop us going to nuclear war, to warn us about the environment? In 1994, in Zimbabwe, there were at a school of young kids, about the age of 11-ish, 10, 11. They were, it was black and white kids. It seemed to be a private school to me because all the kids seemed very articulate. They were playing, and then they say that a saucer came down just beyond the perimeter of their fields, and 2 or 3 aliens got out. And those that were closest to the aliens were looking at them, and they were communicated to without speech. And one little girl, she was saying, "Oh, we said you're endangering your world. You must look after your world," something like that. And these girls were interviewed, and years later I saw them grown up, just a few years ago now, and they were convinced. And a famous psychiatrist, in fact a world famous psychiatrist called John Mack. He's not only world famous psychiatrist, he must be a genius because he wrote a biography of Lawrence of Arabia, and he won the Pulitzer Prize for it. So he's a world famous psychiatrist, Harvard, and he's doing this as well, top of his game in more than one area. He interviewed these girls. I saw the film of him interviewing the girls and boys, asking them what they saw. So he's done other stuff as well in this field. He was killed by a drunk driver in England when he was here for a conference about Lawrence of Arabia. He was looking the wrong way because being American, they instinctively look the wrong way, and it's a great waste. But there we are. So these kids say they saw. The teachers said no, they saw nothing, and the head teacher said she saw nothing. But then on this film, she apologised because she had said she saw it too, but she didn't want to endanger her career. So that's a lot of people seeing it in Zimbabwe in 1994. That's not the only mass incident of seeing these things. Anyway, to carry on, it seems there's real phenomena going on here, not just made up stuff. What is it? Are the visitors here to enlighten us from other planets? My view is...
Or is there another world that we don't know about?
All right, well...
Another Earth like this, people just like us.
Okay, is there another world just like us? All kinds of possibilities. My view is no. There's nothing else, there's no aliens at all. I have to caveat that, because I can't know, but this set of phenomena, which I believe is real, doesn't make me believe that there's life out there. I believe, and this is why I mentioned when I talk about Genesis 6 and these Nephilim, I believe that what has happened is that creatures have continued to exist alongside human beings, not letting themselves be known to human beings, not for a long time anyway, and have quietly developed in their own way. They have spiritual powers that we don't have, hence the capacity to be communicating telepathically. And I'll say some other things which are very disturbing, which John Mack talks about. They can speak of technological advancements on their part, because after all, if they're called the mighty men of renown, their renown isn't just going to be in battle, it's going to be in a range of ways, potentially. So I think that these entities are not from Alpha Centauri or wherever, especially they're here to dupe those who believe they're from Alpha Centauri or wherever it is. They're here to give the impression that they're here to be our little saviours. They say they give telepathic thoughts to children, saying, worry about the planets, worry about the arms race, worry about nuclear weapons. But actually, there's the other side to these creatures, and it's this. John Mack interviewed several of these individuals who say they've been abducted. abducted by these entities, and they've been sexually abused. They've been, for example, females abducted and effectively impregnated, or their eggs harvested. Men violated as well. This is from this psychiatrist, so not a joker, an eminent man. So that isn't the action of good entities. And one thing also they said is when these things are going on, people have no memory afterwards, except they remember that there was a spacecraft outside their house, some distance away, before they then lost memory and they find themselves in this place where these things are being done to them. Well, John Mack heard about this. He went, what am I going to make of this? This is strange. Obviously it's strange. And so he looked into it. So he conducts his interviews, and all these people who are saying this, they're from diverse backgrounds and they're saying the same kind of thing. So something is clearly going on, but these people are often, sometimes they're disappearing, they're being taken through walls, through windows. They're not just entities coming through the walls like, say, an evil character in Star Trek, blasting the house down and taking them away. This is a non-natural set of events. So it seems to me that it's proper to say there's a spiritual darkness that's around. And some have said, when they call upon the name of Jesus, it stops and these entities disappear. So that's why I think this is extremely important, and it's going down the wrong way to look at them as beings from another world. They are beings that we have a clue about from the Bible. And that's where we ought to be looking, and that's how we ought to be thinking about these entities, and how we ought to be looking. We ought to be looking for means to deal with this primarily spiritual phenomenon. Now you might say, well, where are these entities? Where are they? After all, the human race is all over the earth. Well, actually it's not. Huge areas of the earth are uninhabited, unexplored, and the oceans are mostly completely unexplored. And I remember I said that the Air Force pilots saw one coming out of the sea, and Soviet naval operatives said they saw creatures under the sea. And so then the question is, where are they dwelling? Well, we don't know, but they could easily be dwelling here without us ever knowing about it. That's certainly a fact. So that's food for thought.